Hi, everyone. Welcome to Satire Can Save Us All. This is the webcast where we talk about cartooning and satire around the globe in the era of coronavirus. I'm Kevin Callagher. I'm your host. I'm the cartoonist for The Economist magazine of London, for the Baltimore Sun here in Maryland, and for Counterpoint, which is an online newsletter. And this week, I'm so excited. This is episode number 10 for us. I get to interview the great Lalo Alcaraz, who's a nationally syndicated cartoonist who's taking his satirical chops to Hollywood, where he's writing, producing, and consulting on major films, television shows, and now with exciting new projects of his own. And then finally, we close out and sign off with our Muppet in Chief, Mr. Bowser McSchnauzer. But first, let me introduce you to the great Lalo Alcaraz. Lalo Alcaraz has the most diverse portfolio of any cartoonist practicing today. He has a nationally syndicated comic strip called La Cucaracha. He does editorial cartoons in both English and in Spanish for Andrews McMeel Syndicate. He's a decorated writer, having produced a New York Times bestseller. And he's working in Hollywood, recently as a cultural consultant on the Oscar-winning Day of the Dead themed Pixar movie Coco, and also was a staff writer and producer for the Seth MacFarlane-led TV show Bordertown on Fox. And today, he is our guest. On a more personal note, Lalo and I have something in common. Both of us were finalists in this year's Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning. I chatted with Lalo a little bit earlier and wanted to get some insight on how he does his work. I would call you an activist cartoonist, that you come at our craft with the purpose of making positive change using the negative art of cartooning. How do you see your role when you start to put pen to paper? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, I definitely, I think I started, my life's coming full circle right now because I think I started this when I was growing up as a kid and I never saw images of other, Mexican people, Mexican Americans, and it just struck in my craw, like, well, why is this? I grew up on the border in San Diego and Tijuana, U.S. Mexico border, and I would watch growing. I mean, I grew up Spanish is my first language, and I was born on the American side, and but I would watch Mexican TV, but it was all dubbed over, old shows, like Bonanza or something, dubbed over in Spanish, and I didn't know the difference, and then once I learned and I saw that there really weren't images of us, I think that's what kind of started me on my cartoon journey when I realized I could make my images of me and my friends and my family and my culture and put that out there because you didn't really see it. But really it started because of television. And when I was a kid, I also used to write, like I would watch the original Saturday Night Live, and write down the sketches, like an outline of the sketches, and of course Mad Magazine. And so, it was like all came together, satire, comedy, and awareness of lack of representation. And somehow it came out the other end, comics. And now after all these years, now I'm in television, and so it works. And what I'm trying to do as kind of an activist or a propagandist, I'm just trying to get more representation visually for us, for our issues, for Latinos overall, for immigrants, and Mexican Americans, Chicanos. So I've covered the gamut of all that, and then I love editorial cartooning as a craft, and I try to, follow that star too, balance them all out.
Yeah, so because you're the arc of your career, many people who do the cartooning thing their goal when they start off is to be a cartoonist. But you wear many different hats, and you said you started off with this mission. You went into comic strips and you did commentary cartoons. You did alternative cartoons like L.A. Weekly and things like that. But recently, as you alluded to, now you're back into the TV thing. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to actually start with the TV thing. I'm going to go backwards because I want you to
Sure.
just tell me just a little bit about the kind of stuff you're doing in moving pictures, and then maybe how the stuff you did before has affected or helped inform what you're doing today.
Sure. Like right now, I am the cultural consultant and consulting producer on a show on Nickelodeon called The Casa Grandes. It's an animated show. It's the first, as far as I can tell, uh, first animated show about a big Latino family, and it's a big multi-generational Mexican American family, and we've got immigrants, we've got U.S. citizens, we've got uh, um, first generation, second generation. We've got the whole gamut, and it's a really fun space to be in because you can kind of be wholesome and kind of push the edge a little bit. It is for 6 to 11-year-olds, but you can push the edge, and so. When I sneak in politics, it's that much more impactful, and as if you look at it on its own. But for me, it satisfies my mission of showing, a brown family just being normal and as crazy as everyone's families are, and it means a lot to me to be able to do it. It means a lot when I get an email from a parent that's watching, the show's great for Covian because we try to sneak in some jokes for the grown-ups too, but nothing too racy. And they feel like, wow, I'm represented because they grew up the same way I did, didn't really get to see themselves on TV, and they feel doubly, heartfelt, positive about it because now their kids can see kids that look like them on TV, and before this, not a whole lot of opportunities for that.
So when people hear consultant, what does that mean for something like that?
Well, that's how I got into my recent bout with Hollywood as a consultant. Like 5 years ago, I was a part of a team of cultural consultants on a Pixar movie called Coco, Day of the Dead movie, and so we basically just anytime a Mexican cultural issue came up and anybody had a question, even though the production was very diverse and they had a co-director that was young Mexican American and writers, artists, of course, the Latinos are very well represented in animation, which is a very nice thing as far as art. And historically, they've always been well represented in animation. But I can talk more about that later. But the consultant will they say it's the lowest rung on Hollywood. We're like below the guy that helps at the craft services table. And they basically run everything by us, and if we have notes and say this element is incorrectly portrayed or the pronunciation on this dialogue is wrong, or we even helped on marketing for the movie. We went to the testing of the movie, and we went out to Arizona to watch the testing and see all our notes be validated, in front of the top Disney Pixar brass, and so we consulted on the music. So anything that makes the movie more, the project more authentic, that's where the cultural consultant is, But also I have a rank as a consulting producer, which means, I'm just another producer on the show. And they will hear me uh, I can yap about any topic. I can consult on any whether a fart joke is funny or not. Like Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that's right. So you must have some particular favorite story. It's got to be a good story of an element that either you added or needed to be done.
Sure, sure. The other day we had a we're all in quarantine, and Pixar said we're going to do a Coco watch party with the director Lee Unkrich, and they invited us to participate. So we were encouraged to tweet, to talk to viewers, and talk about the film. And of course, the biggest tweet that Lee Unkrich, the director, posted was one that said, uh, the grandma character, the abuela character in the film, they say they showed an early mock-up of her with a big wooden spoon. They said we had her running around tormenting the kids with a wooden spoon, as a disciplinary object, right? And but Lalo Alcaraz, a cultural consultant, said, "No way, man! It's got to be a chancla, a slipper, because that's what our moms and grandmas really terrorized us with." And they, the all of the consultants said, really, we got to do the chancla. But I was the most, vociferous, like, you have to have that. And it really struck a chord with the audience. They all reacted as they should, like in terror and recognition.
Yeah, that's so funny. So you did that work on the Pixar film. That's quite interesting, and they probably were really happy to have you. But you have an interesting story of how you got connected with Disney because you weren't a friend of Disney for a while.
No, Disney is always the cartoonist's favorite target. We love to make fun of Disney, and we secretly, because of that old joke when your parents would ask you or tell you, or your relatives say, "Oh, you're a cartoonist. One day you were gonna work for Disney." That's the pinnacle. It's like that's not the kind of cartoonists that we are. Bless all the talented friends of ours that work at Disney
Right.
and Pixar and everything, drawing their asses off. But so I was just as much a critic of Disney. Disney's right here down the street ish from me, and they always have big bad corporate issues, and haven't always treated their employees well, and sometimes we're on the wrong end of political battles, and they supported. They give money to both sides. So, like Trump says, to paraphrase Trump, there are bad people on both sides, right? And so they gave money to anti-immigrant candidate Pete Wilson during the back in the 80s during the Proposition 187 battle. He was using anti-immigrant law to get reelected, which
As
he
governor,
did
right? As
handily.
governor. It was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
now
yeah.
because he was originally the mayor of Los Angeles, wasn't he?
He was a mayor of San Diego,
San Diego, that's
my
right. And so this
hometown.
was when he was running for governor, right?
Yeah, and for his reelection, this is when this came up, and he rode that anti-immigrant horse all the way to the victory line. And but I called out Disney for having donated money to him at the same time that they were trying to market to Latinos. They're dubbing their movies over into Spanish, and they were discovering this market. And I just pointed out the irony, and I drew this cartoon, Migra Mouse, and it's it's Mickey Mouse dressed as a U.S. Border Patrolman. Well, and it became infamous and was used. It was viral before there was the internet, really, social media, and it became an iconic piece. So then, my first big iconic piece, really, and then flash forward to Disney trying to get this dot all their legal I's and cross their T's for Coco, and they end up filing a trademark application for the term Dia de los Muertos, which is a Mexican holiday, Day of the Dead, and they some dumb lawyer out there, probably not a very diverse crew of lawyers or very bright, thought it would be a good idea to, because the project was called Dia de los Muertos at the time. I'm sure they just had to do it, and they have to, trademark it, so that they could make Dia de los Muertos T-shirts to promote the movie and do Happy Meals, McDonald's and all that crap. But they unwisely tried to trademark another country's holiday. I mean, can you imagine if Disney tried to trademark Hanukkah? Not happening, not happening. Hanukkah the movie, and so they it was just an explosion of anger in the community, and that happened on a Tuesday night. The news of that came out by Thursday night after petitions and after I drew a cartoon, Muerto Mouse, which was the cousin of Migra Mouse, and it's a big Day of the Dead looking skeleton. Took it from a 60s horror movie, monster movie, and after that came out, boom, Disney withdrew the application for that. Flash forward a year after that, a friend of mine is a consultant on the movie and calls me and says the executive producer wants to meet with you, see if you consider being on the team. And I said, this has got a little bit of the, let's co-opt Lalo and make him our friend, but I felt like it's if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing, so they couldn't beat me. And I felt like, this is the universe is dropping this thing in my lap so that I could make sure that this movie's good, because, they could have ruined, my friend Jorge Gutierrez is a animator. He did the movie Book of Life, and he was like always messaging me during anytime I get a show or something. But when I was working on Coco, he was like always messaging me saying, "Don't mess this up, or else they'll never let us make Mexican movies again." So I worked my hardest on it, and it won an Oscar, won a couple Oscars. It became the #1 movie of all time in Mexico, and U.S. audiences loved it. So it was a hit.
Yeah, congrats.
So it was overall a good experience.
It was good, and something that clearly you are proud of, and you should be proud of, because all these changes that are and evolutions of societies are all going to come in small chapters, and of course, just like what we're seeing with all the turmoil that's rocking America today in our cities, is that often there's so many people who don't feel that there's enough change fast enough in their lifetime, or their fear that the changes will be taking place not in their lifetime. So that the fact that you've seen in the course of your career some vestiges of change, it must be very satisfying.
It's we joke in the community about every 10 years or so they declare it the decade of the Latino, and it passes by and nothing happens, and then some other corporate genius, marketing genius declares it the decade of the Latino again, and it's like nothing, 10 years go by, nothing happens. And so we've been in that, agitating. I've been agitating for representation in media for forever. And, I watched my friends that are actors, Latinos, get older and miss out on opportunities because Hollywood won't hire them. They'd rather hire someone from another country, or they'll hire a white actor. And these days are hopefully, they're ending, put them in brown face. And, it's just really, I didn't think it was going to happen in my lifetime. And all of a sudden it started happening a lot.
Yeah.
So, it's more like a glacial move and then a comet comes, boom.
Bang. And so now,
and I think that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that too right now with all this, all the turmoil in the U.S. It feels new and scary, but I've been there. I was in the LA riots, in 1992. And we were participants, we were like protesting and getting pushed down by cops and watching property, go up, and there was righteous anger. and it's because the greater society does not listen, does not learn its lesson. Listen to us, listen to the impoverished communities, and they turn deaf ear every time, and it's going to keep happening.
Mm. So you're doing this. Now you mentioned you're doing the Nickelodeon thing. It's aimed at kids, and you've already mentioned the fact that you have to be very suspect or very careful about adding politics. But increasingly, the fact that they're just doing something where that is basically encouraging this notion that we're stronger as a diverse society rather than a monocultural society is a kind of a political statement of its own, don't you think? And do you find that just in the kind of the general atmosphere of the people that you're working with, that's more of an understanding, and because that's coming in more high relief now, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I've had the opportunity to talk to like the head of Nickelodeon, the one that's in New York, and just at events, but I have access to lots of people at my company that are on the same. We're on the same. We're of the same mindset. I don't know if we're on the same page yet, but Nickelodeon is super committed to diversity. We have our crew for our show is an extra diverse crew, and our art department is, we have Asians and Latinos, lots of Mexican American artists on our crew. We have a the Nickelodeon is committed to culturally accurate casting. We have overwhelmingly Latino voice actors, and then in the writing room, we're about 40% representation, especially when I keep opening my yap and pitching jokes and demanding to write stories. I get to write a couple of episodes every season. But it is in animation especially. I feel that commitment. There is a big commitment to diversity, and at Nickelodeon, I mean, they know what a big chunk of their audience are Latino kids. Who has more kids? That's simple. It's that the math is not hard.
That's right.
There's a lot of brown kids out there that will, that rejoice when they see a show that's aimed at them. I mean, and then other little kids, they're not racist jerks. They watch the show, they love it.
Sure. Sure.
It's like that the abuela reminds me of my nani or whatever. I don't know how white people call their grandparents.
You talked about being in the riots, and right up to now, you've always been kind of in the front line of this battle, this cultural battle, and for a long time, you had your comic strip, which was a first Latina-based comic strip. Is that right?
Well, it's you got to thread the needle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first political Latino comic strip.
Okay.
But sadly, there's only been 3.
You're in the top 3 in that case, huh?
Yeah, top 3 again.
Right.
The other comic strip that's not political, but it is a cultural strip, is Baldo.
Yeah.
It was syndicated also by Andrews McMeel, and came out a little bit before La Cucaracha came out in a daily form. But the very first one is Gordo by Gus Arriola. And
move the book over a little bit to so we can. There you go, right there, Gordo. Okay.
I'm an avid collector of Gus Arriola's work. It's beautiful stuff. I mean, you might want to do better graphics than me, but his work was groundbreaking. He started in 1943. He was nationally syndicated. He was the first guy. I mean, could he be the first, minority to have a nationally syndicated comic strip?
Possibly.
He might be. He might be. But I got to talk to him once. He did a blurb for me. He passed away a few years ago. He had Parkinson's, actually. But but he was the very first one. His strip, I would read it when I was a kid. This is how the work, I know the work matters, because I remember cracking the Sunday paper and seeing Gordo, and I'm like, 12 years old looking at this going like, how come there's nothing else like this in the comics or in the paper or on TV, And it was just amazing to see. It really is, our work is impactful. People do see it, and they're little minds are blown every day.
Well, so I want to close out by kind of asking you about the future, right? And both your kind of future, but also the mission that you've been on for your life. Where do you see it going?
I'm well. I guess I could announce here. I just started a movie and TV production company, and officially got an LLC for it and everything. And we're going to be developing, hopefully, and producing films. I really want to make historical films about Mexican Americans in the U.S. I don't feel like there's been a handful of movies, and they're usually about a singer that dies in a plane, or dies somehow. But there's a whole world of media that I want to explore with film and TV, and continuing this, the mission to represent our community, but also our stories, our history, and show what badasses we are.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I know you're a badass. I've been following you a long time, and it's so much fun to have you.
Yeah, you're a badass.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I can be badass too.
Let's do the congratulate the fellow Pulitzer finalist thing right now.
Right, that's it. That's right. You kick ass. No, you're good. No, you're good.
Right. Got two.
That's it. Well, look, it's so much fun talking to you, Lalo. Love to have you on board. And obviously, as things start to develop in your production company, man, I'd love to talk to you some other time in the future. When there's some interesting things to talk about. So anyways,
sure,
welcome,
man.
and thanks for coming on. Satire can save us all, man.
It will save us. Please pray to Satire.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That was so much fun. It's always great talking to our good friend Lalo Alcaraz. I'm looking forward to see what his production company comes up with, and we'll report back to you with any good news. Now, with all the turmoil that's gripping our nation's cities, it's been very challenging for cartoonists and satirists everywhere to deal with it. And this week, we're providing you with a special bonus tracks, an extra interview on this subject. This Thursday, our satire correspondent, Alexandra Bowman, has been talking with a young upcoming African-American artist, Chelsea Saunders, about the challenges that these times provide. And I tell you, it's a really great conversation, and I hope you can join us there on Thursday. Now, if you are a fan, please subscribe below. Hit the subscription button below and join us. And come back here, of course, next Tuesday to join us as well, when we're going to have more interviews with cartoonists and satirists around the globe. And that leads us now just to sign off with our good friend, Mr. Bowser McSchnauzer. Hello there. Hello there, Mr. Bowser. How's it going? Yeah, great. So I asked Bowser to sign off for us today. And what are you going to do, Bowser? Well, I brought my own sign. You brought your own sign. Well, that's great. Well, why don't you show the sign to the people, and I'll kind of do the last bit of talking, and we'll take it from there. How's that sound? Sounds good. All right. So I want to hope that all of you guys will come back here again next week and join us, and join Bowser, join me, and we will hopefully see you on Satire Can Save Us All. Wait a minute. What does that sign say? I don't know. Maybe we need to get another guy to help us sign off. I'll do it better next time. All right, guys. Take care. See you again next Tuesday.